and welcome to another weekly update. How was Microsoft Ignite for you? We're going to cover some of the things from Ignite this week, but not all of them. Annoyingly, some of the recordings as of Saturday night weren't available yet, so I haven't reviewed all of them, but that's okay. There's still plenty of other things to talk about, and actually quite a lot to talk about, so let's get straight into it. All right, so the first one, there's a blog on the Microsoft 365 developer blog called Introducing the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK. This sounds very much like a new SDK for agents. It is not. It's slightly confusing. Microsoft are renaming the Bot Framework SDK. So you wouldn't know that by looking at this until you scrolled all the way down to, all the way past the pictures, down to here. The Microsoft 365 Agents SDK is the evolution of the Bot Framework. Okay, so couple of things. Firstly, this makes sense, I suppose, in one sense, because the Bot Framework has been, the de facto place for developers to build bots on the Microsoft stack, Teams initially, and then other places. Supports lots of different channels, always has, and has evolved over the past year or so with AI support around large language models. Lots of cool stuff in there that you can do. And they've been kind of doing a really good job of evolving that stuff. This is more of a name change. So without really changing anything, it's now called the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK. I find that a little confusing, honestly. I kind of get why, because everything has to be Copilot, everything has to be agents now. Agents is the sort of forward motion, and this aligns to that. But I think it is going to be kind of confusing for a whole bunch of developers who are used to working with the Bot Framework. So the thing to remember is what used to be called Bot Framework has now just been renamed to the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK. I'm sure, stuff will happen now. Like, the Bot Framework hasn't stopped, never has stopped, has had a long history. And it's going to kind of carry on doing all these same things around integrating agents and into places, supporting more and more channels. And it's going to, one of the interesting things is that right now, Copilot is not a supported channel for the Bot Framework or for this Agents SDK. So we have a Microsoft 365 Agents SDK where you can write agents that work in Teams and on the web and SMS, and all sorts of other different things, but not actually Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is a bit of a gap. But I imagine that's one of the ones they're going to sort pretty quickly. But, just be aware. So there's a blog post talking all about it, but just read it knowing that this is what we used to call Bot Framework. Okay. Microsoft Graph, the call records API for Microsoft Teams is the one that you can subscribe to be notified about every call on WrapUp. It posts information about the call, the quality, the devices, the network, all sorts of interesting things. But up until now, it was a bit of an all or nothing. So if you subscribe to it for your organization, you get all the calls for your organization. You can now make a subscription that is very filtered, so you can specify the endpoints or the aliases, the addresses that you want to only receive notifications for. So this could be interesting and useful for your application if you want to have very specific. I just want to monitor calls from these people or from this. It's any object ID, it's any user object ID. So it's possibly you could do it from any meeting room, I think. But I think probably the easier thing to do is to do it from people. If you've got a group of people you want to monitor calls from, you can do that now. You could do it before by just taking everything and throwing away what you didn't want, but it was kind of wasteful and kind of expensive to do that. This will be cheaper because you're only going to process the information you care about. So you can now do that in the subscription. When you set up the subscription, the notification URL can now include a filter parameter, an OData filter parameter, which is pretty cool. That's all written up again in a blog post I'll put a link to. Big news from Ignite this year from Azure Communication Services. Very, very much aligned with what's happening in AI. They now support bidirectional real-time audio streaming. Why is this interesting? Think about contact centers, customer care experiences, and things like that. You might want to take that audio stream in real time and pass it off to an AI engine to analyze it, to determine things like sentiment, to determine how best to answer it even, to give agents information, maybe even just construct a model answer and play it back. So having that real-time access to the audio allows you to create bots that do that. And so Azure Communication Services are going to support it. They're announcing it today. It's an upcoming preview. So it's really good to see them very aligned with this AI stuff, because this is really going to unlock some really interesting use cases. They've got a big blog post about it. Here's a bit of a diagram here. Your call comes in to Azure Communication Services, to takes off the audio streaming, hives it off to your application. You can then manage that process off to Azure OpenAI to analyze the voice, to analyze the audio, and then take action. What they've also got is the information you need to set up WebSockets to do that. So you've got everything you need really to put in place a pretty cool real-time AI-driven voice-enabled solution. So very, very nice. Interested to play with this when it becomes available. Yeah, really, really good. Should unlock some interesting bot scenarios for Azure Communication Services. Okay. What else? Default options for Teams app, and cover this one very, very quickly. Update to the documentation. You can now specify for your Teams app, let's say you've got a Teams app that includes both a bot and a tab, but you want users to go to the bot when they double click on the app for the first time, or to the tab. Previously, there's not really been a way to control that. Now you can say to Teams, this is the default experience I want. So that's really nice. I know lots of people will like that. It's always come up as a kind of user experience niggle. Jamie Maguire, fellow MVP, has written up a really good blog post about Semantic Kernel and optimizing chat history. I love Jamie's blog posts. He goes into detail about stuff just as I'm kind of starting to think about it and thinking, oh, that's a problem someone should solve. He's got a blog post just talking about, like, he's done a lot more thinking about it than I have, and it's got some really interesting ideas. The kind of premise around the problem statement here is that when you've got a very large chat history with generative AI, it becomes very large to pass around. So is there a good way of reducing the size of the sort of chat history you're importing in your tokens without losing the context? So yeah, he's got some good scenarios for doing that and some code samples for implementing them as well. So yeah, there's a couple of different solution ideas here around, yeah, sending only the last number, limiting based on token count, or summarizing. And then different implementations and experiences there as well. So that's definitely worth a read if you're doing anything around sort of chat and Gen AI, because this is a problem you need to think about. I'm sure you're all doing it by just ignoring the problem for now and taking the entire history of the conversation each time. At some point, that stops working because of the conversation length. So it's worth thinking about how you're going to sort of solve that problem. And then finally, quickly, another blog post from Ignite this year around Office add-ins. And really, this is a reminder that Office add-ins very much still exist. I know they're not Copilot, but they are still there. They are still evolving and people are still working on them. So there's a whole blog post about what's new for Office add-ins at Ignite this year. And they are continuing to evolve the platform and the tooling as well. So there's a whole bunch of new things they're doing, which is interesting. And Office add-ins are a really good way for users to kind of work with Office applications and also your business and your business logic. So they're bringing it into Visual Studio Code as well, which is a really good idea. It will really help make it a bit more accessible as well. It's been kind of late coming, but it's really good to see it here. And there's going to be a unified Microsoft 365 unified store that's going to show up in other apps like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint as well. So that's exciting. And there's a lot more coming for the unified manifest as well. So this whole thing is worth reading through. Anyway, going to keep it short this week. Hoping for more Ignite content next week once I've been through the videos. Whatever it is you're doing, have a great one. Speak to you next time.